Hi, welcome to the Self-Aware Leader live stream. I'm Ron with Lead Skill, and today we have a special show. So for the last 12 weeks, since we started the Self-Aware Leader, we've been bringing to you new content each week. And I thought, since this is December 13th, middle of December, 2022, that it would really be a good idea, it'd be appropriate to do a synopsis and just do a quick rundown of each of the first 12 episodes and review 2022. Like, where have we traveled and what are some of the things that we've talked about? And so I'm going to do that in the next few minutes. And then I'm going to do a little bit of reflection. I'm going to bring Angela into the conversation, and we're going to talk through what were some of the highlights, the high points for us, and also where we'd like to go in the next season, in the new year. So thanks for joining us. I'm really appreciative for our viewers, and I would ask you to comment and engage with us. Let us know you were here. We welcome that. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our Lead Skill channel and let us know that you want to have more of this kind of content. In the comments, you can also let us know what are some things you're interested in learning more about for future episodes, and we'll take that into consideration. So let me go ahead and do a quick rundown here, and let's revisit some of the ground that we've covered for 2022. We actually started back in September, and let me just run it all the way back here. September 14th, we started with the first episode, Emotions at Work. And we really were talking a lot on that episode about why we don't discuss emotions and why it's not really something that we're very comfortable with in the workplace, and really why emotional intelligence is a pretty desirable skill set for us to have. So that's a great place to start. And if you want to go back, I don't like looking at my first videos. I've heard the saying, the first or the worst, but it really helps me to learn how far I've come. And so thanks for your support and your patience as we come along. So the second episode in our whole live stream was kind of teeing off that same theme, but taking it the next step further, which is how leaders create emotional cultures. And we talked about, kind of the whole stigma around, are there, certain emotions that are more acceptable and emotions that are unacceptable to show at work, and the importance of leaders at kind of setting a level and normalizing what is okay for us to share and what is okay for us to bring to work. Can we bring our whole selves? Do they just want a robot, basically, no emotions? And how leaders establish that through their actions, through their comments, through their own example. And so that's an important one. And we even got personal on that episode. On episode 3, we really dove into self-awareness and leadership. And this is one of my favorite episodes. We hit a lot of things on this. We covered a great breadth of topics. We did the basics of self-awareness, what it is. I mean, the better than average effect. Self-deception as the opposite of self-awareness. We introduced a couple of tools like the breath framework and the emotions wheel, and those 3 different distinctions that leaders can use, like I'm clear, I'm cloudy, I'm red. So lots of things in episode 3. I recommend it, one of my favorites, and I think you could get a lot from it as well. In October, so at our first month of the live stream, in the 4th episode, it looks like a very similar title, Self-Awareness and Leaders versus Self-Awareness and Leadership. What we did here was we went back in time, back to the ancient roots of emotional intelligence. And I shared one of my favorite resources that I learned from Peter Drucker, which was this ancient Greek guy named Xenophon, and some of the things that he had to teach us about leadership and emotional intelligence and making the best of a very bad situation. So that is, to me, a very interesting episode because I'm fascinated by history, and maybe you would get something out of it too if you were curious about kind of the lessons from history and how long has this emotional intelligence thing been around anyway. So in episode 5, we did a behind the scenes look about beginning the EQ journey. So we got personal here. I shared and Angela shared as well kind of our personal story of why emotional intelligence matters to us and how we got introduced to this whole topic area, this theme. And it's one of our longer episodes. In fact, we went for over an hour on this one. But there was a lot about the, I'd like to know how EQ touches a person on a personal level. And it really does. If you don't tap into that, you're missing a huge resource for it. More about that in a future episode. Actually, one that we did in the first season, I'll talk about in just a second. But I really enjoyed doing this one. Episode 6 was, how much self-awareness do you really have? And if you're paying attention in episode 3, when we talked about the better than average effect, the fact is for a lot of leaders, we think we have more self-awareness than we really do. And so this episode was all about how to measure and different methods or, methodologies of measuring self-awareness and getting a more objective read about that. And so we talked about ways and methods of measurement. And, for those who are especially interested in objective data and, what I call more hard science behind it, this may be the episode for you to really dig into. More than halfway through the first season, we did a little more of a attention to mindfulness and self-awareness. So in episode 7, for mindfulness, we were trying to talk about practical ways that leaders can really exercise self-awareness. I mean, maybe for a leader, you're thinking to yourself, well, I've heard about self-awareness, I've heard about mindfulness, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And so we talked about meditation as one way to practice mindfulness, but there's multiple ways to actually practice it. Journaling, going for walks, mindful work. There's just a lot of different expressions of it, but meditation is a good practice. And we did another, touch on the breath model, the framework, and really gave some practical points about meditation. Episode 8 was a little bit different. So we went into kind of the concepts about if you've ever heard of Stephen Covey's work and the 7 habits of highly effective people, he brought out, this whole idea about the circle of influence and circle of concern, which actually was building on much earlier work. And so if you've done psychology, maybe or like even a Psych 101 class in college, you know about the locus of control, the locus of concern or influence. And if none of those are familiar to you, this is the episode for you to dive into, because we went into the different circles and what is it we actually have direct control over? Where is the source of our power? And then what about our sphere of influence with other people? And what about awareness? Self-awareness is critical, but social awareness is part of the mix too. So we went into kind of on a high concept level. And, I think there's some really useful things in here for leaders who are trying to grow with people. Episode 9 was our self-awareness deep dive. And one of the points about, if you haven't noticed, we're really all about self-awareness on the self-aware leader. And that's what this live stream, what we're trying to highlight. So in the deep dive, I tackled the question of, why do we say that self-awareness is the gateway to great leadership? And we discussed the different kinds of self-awareness, especially when it comes to emotions, different levels or degrees of awareness, and some of the practices that help us to be more aware, especially of our emotions. On episode 10, by the way, let me just back up for one quick second. It was somewhere, I think around episode 7 or 8, about a month ago now in real time. I mean, back in November, when Angela gave me the charge to take some of the content from our live streams and shoot a separate video, more condensed, 10 minutes or less, where I just kind of give, key points. And so episode 7 was where I started that. You can find those separate videos on our channel, including some of the titles like When Nice Leaders Get Angry, or What Leaders Really Control, featuring some of the concepts that we just discussed. Self-awareness for leaders, deep dive, and then self-regulation leadership. And so on this one about self-regulation, there's really a key point here in our model about it's great to have awareness, but what do you do with that? And being able to control ourselves and manage and regulate ourselves is a key skill for leaders to practice, to model, and then to make normal in their workplaces. Going back to episode 2, when we talked about leaders creating emotional cultures. And so self-regulation of the leader is really key in this whole enterprise. On episode 11, we talked about motivation. Motivation is a perennial or an evergreen subject that people are interested in. We've actually had, quite a number of views on this live stream. I think people are more interested in motivation. And I laid out different types of motivation, external and internal, and we went even a layer deeper on each one of those. And so I would recommend this episode 11, Motivation and Emotional Intelligence, to get like a thorough treatment. And then the video that went with that, that you can also find on our channel, called Types of Motivation, where I laid it out in more depth as well. Our 12th episode, last week, in fact, we did something of a deep dive, mindfulness for leaders, where we went through the breath framework at a little more leisurely pace, not so much, on the surface, but, spending time on each one of the 6 steps in the circle of the breath practice. And mindfulness for leaders helps us to really practice what we talked about in the previous week about self-regulation and how to cultivate greater awareness. So these are the 12 topics that we've covered, a quick rundown, and it's been quite a ride, quite a journey. I'm going to actually bring Angela into the conversation at this point so that we can talk a little bit more about the whole journey that we've been on, and some of the how we did this, why we did it, and just to enjoy more of this process together. So Angela, welcome.
Hello, hi. So start off, would you tell me how you like to take the next part of the conversation?
So I was focusing just this, the last few minutes on running through my brain and trying to stay on top of all these episodes. And I know that you were capturing, a lot of some of my sound bites, if you will, in the comments and putting those up on the screen. But I'm also curious to hear from you. Were there any of these that stood out that you were like, oh yeah, like you remembered that episode and it really left an impression? Did you have any favorites? I shared what my favorite was. I'm curious to know if you had any.
I don't have any favorites, but I do appreciate the conversations shared here, and I think that's what I like about this part of the work that Lead Skill brings to the marketplace, facilitating questions and conversations about EQ. Because what really happens is, whether it's in a facilitation workshop or virtual calls, there is a time limit or what's discussed, but what's valuable is the aftermath. So it's the aftermath that I found tremendous value in my own personal and professional life.
So you're talking about after the episode and taking some of the things that we discussed and continuing to work with it. apply it, use
Yes.
it.
Yes. It's taken time. It takes my understanding of self-awareness to a new level, on emotional intelligence. It made me want to explore other experts who have topics that go further deeper into areas that I'm interested in, especially in healing, self-healing, and trauma work, or any conversations where they have data that talk about this topic on a global for a global audience. So those are the things that have been valuable to me. Yeah.
Just grab
So
this. I think that's a great share. So that's one of the things that we carry with us, even outside of the sessions. I would say for leaders, we call this the self-aware leader live stream. It's not enough to just kind of read a good book, and there are several out there about increasing your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence. You really have to be a practitioner. You really have to put yourself on the path of mastery. And in order to do that, I think you have to kind of take up the identity of a teacher somewhat, or a coach at least. And you're a player coach. And so it's not just coaching from the sidelines of, the people that you manage or that you lead, but it's also like you're out on the field, you're captain of the team, and you're out there demonstrating, how we're going to tackle this, how we're going to play the game, how we're going to, pick ourselves up whenever we're knocked down, whenever we have setbacks. And I think that's part of the challenge, is that this is not just a head thing. This is really about, taking the some of these lessons to heart, practicing them, modeling them, and being real about not just your wins, but also your failures.
yeah, I think because so when you're in beginner's mind, you come open, right? You come open, willing to learn and soak in the new knowledge. It's like, us going to the farmer's market, just learning it. And the first time I was there, I was really excited about the different types of chili that's available and that one can use in Mexican cuisine. But I remember, as I was happily taking pictures of all these different various chilies, that the second time I'm going to the farmer's market, it's going to be different because I kind of know the layout of the land and the type of things I want to show my sons when they come back for a family trip to that place. And the same thing about this conversation on EQ. As I journey with you, I kind of like know a little bit more. And as we repeat information, I feel like, man, I got this. And then I have to constantly remember to be a practitioner and beginner's mind. So remember, I think it was a year or two ago, I think probably 2 years ago, I created a pillow for your parents' 60th anniversary. I was in the creative design. I was creating a ton of pillows. I was in that stage where I was, I'm a designer, creative designer, and I also do campaigns for LinkedIn. um, um, I also do LinkedIn campaigns for experts and professionals. And one of the things I do for my own creative outlet is design pillows. And I remember after I did that, and I did a couple of pillows, and then I said, "Hey, hun, shall we make a pillow for your emotions wheel? You came up with this, and we did this. Let's see. This is how many emotions are there in this one?
This is 48, the
This is
naming
48.
emotions wheel.
Okay, it's 48. And this is patterned after Plutchik's model. And who is Plutchik again?
Robert Plutchik was a psychologist and researcher
Okay.
that we base our emotions wheel model off of.
I want to do something fun, so I said, okay, let's turn this into a pillow because you can put it in a therapist's office, counselor's office. It'll be really fun. And then so we made this.
Or at the workplace, we could
Yes,
have the pillow on.
it's really fun. So I made this and all that. It was really cool. The print, everything, the font, the colors were just beautiful. And then as we are journeying on this conversation, because we've done Twitter Spaces, and when we're doing Twitter Spaces, I was looking at this constantly,
Yeah.
and because I did it in the stickers, because I also design stickers and I make stickers. And I love that. So I did this, and this was really handy when I'm working, when I needed to take a 5-minute break and see, like, checking what am I feeling, so that I can actually continue with my work in a good state. And if I need to cry, I need to cry. I'll go cry. And after that, like all human beings, we like novelty. So I came to this, and I'll tell you something that I've been doing with this lately, because of this conversation, is that I find myself setting a timer using my phone, 5 minutes, and just going through it in the morning and in the evening, just 5 minutes. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling? Where am I feeling this emotion? Who am I feeling this emotion with? And why? And I got to see surprises. I got to see, like, oh, I so the other night, I think I was looking at fear and surprise. I was very surprised at, like, oh, is that the area I'm feeling a lot of fear in? I didn't realize that. Oh, I just noticed things like, oh, okay. You know, noticing them like feathers or rain coming down versus like, oh my gosh, how do I fix this? Like bricks, trying to fix it. Um, and and also working with other things. It's just a 5-minute check-in, so it has been really, really helpful. So to bring it back to this short, to bring it back, what I'm
Well,
saying.
let me enter at that point and just say, I see there's a real value, not just, I tend to think in concepts, and so I have the wheel. I have digital, files on my computer, and it comes up as a screensaver and that sort of thing. And you showed that you made kind of your own board using a sticker and just, putting on a hardboard. And I've got one on my desk here. I've got
Yours
one of
is
these
more
one of these
professional.
boards that I
Yeah.
got off of Redbubble. We put it up there. And so, you can have one of these. I think the value of the pillow is, one, the size, but also there is something about the tactile,
Mhm.
the touching, and that it's soft. It's not like a hard, framed sort of, thing that you're not going to kind of grab hold of. I mean, a pillow you want to hold, you want to hug sometimes, or it's like you can hold it out from you and look at it and, kind of play with it a little bit. It
Mhm.
it kind of invites that sort of playful sort of discovery. And I like that. So it's useful not just in, you mentioned like in a therapy or clinical context, but I mean, in training rooms or at work, in, a manager or a leader's office,
Mhm.
having it on the couch there.
Mhm.
I think it's great. Not that leaders are going to be leading some sort of therapy session, but when people come into your office, it's like having some sort of anchor to put them at ease and to talk about tough stuff, things that they're feeling, or
Yeah.
for you to actually be able to say, you know, I'm at a loss for words right now. And just to, again, to model, to be vulnerable and just, share with people, like, this is difficult, and I want to acknowledge that. In fact, what I'm feeling right now is stuck, or I feel, you know, um, a sense of like shock, about what's going on. And so I think the pillow is actually a pretty useful prop, and we haven't really talked about it. Maybe we're doing a disservice to our viewers by not bringing that in, but I'm
Yes.
glad that
This time.
you're using it and
Yeah.
that you brought it into our conversation, because I think it actually is something that I want to explore in a future episode, is probably more of a deep dive about naming our feelings, naming emotions, and some of the ways that we can do that.
Yeah. It's available at our website. I believe this one.
Leadskill.com. Yeah,
Yes.
you can find
So
it there.
another thing, so it's like, what am I learning? So we think about time exercises where take mental health breaks. And sometimes a lot of these things, it's like they seem so simple. And so I like to, cross mix and match and cross breed kind of thing. So the exercise of just taking 5 minutes and setting a timer. I set timers to breathe, to meditate, to be mindful of what's going on, to write, to journal. and emotions. Because one of the things there are many assessment tools that your company offers. I think one of the one was the Hartman axiology one that really spoke to me. I mean, it was a very short assessment, but yet the data and the information was jam packed with a lot of self awareness information. And one of the things that I saw was um, it was able to get really granular in unpacking a lot of things about me, but also give me the main things I need to work on. And one of it is self-regulating my emotions. And the reason why I want to self-regulate my emotions even more is because I've got so much stuff to do these days. I
Mm,
cannot
yeah.
afford to say, I'll wait and do them later. I can't. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I want to be. I'm not saying that uh, what is the word? I'm not doing this because I want to stay productive so that I look good, but it's just that just to get a handle on things and to make sure they're done and not delayed and rolled out. What is the best way to do it? For instance, I'm helping you. I think the book is rolling out now and it's going to be on Kindle within the week. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, back in the day, it would take us a couple of months before we have an idea to write the work, and then make it happen, the cover art, and then put it out on Kindle and all the various platforms. Now we're looking at how do we roll this out in a week, you know because it's timely. That's the one thing that's wonderful about EPUB publishing these days. You want to put out timely content. So, and of course, when you're working with new softwares and platforms, many things happen. And you could do something and then the whole thing crash, gone, and all that. I'm like, my emotions are running amok. Amok? What is this? Crazy in me.
Uh, yeah. Amok, I
Running
think, is the word you're looking
amok.
for.
That's right. Amok. A-M-O-K. I'm running amok in me. And so, how do I just take 5 minutes and just, okay, where am I?
Yeah,
10
that's
minutes.
good.
Let me just put on a song and just take a walk. 8 minutes, download journal. And then, like, okay, let's get it done.
I
So,
know that some people won't give themselves that time or think that it's a luxury. I don't have that time. I can't. I can't indulge myself that way. We tell ourselves a lot of stories and give ourselves reasons why we don't take mental health breaks or um, give ourselves the space that we need. And I think it's useful for us to push on that a little bit. Why not take 5? Why not take 10? As opposed to, I'm just going to soldier on and do my work, and I'm going to waste the next hour because where I'm coming from, I'm sour. I'm not dealing with the emotion. And therefore, the way I do my work, the quality of it, I'm actually going to be spinning my wheels longer. If
mhm,
someone shows up either in my inbox or in my doorway, in my space, I'm probably not going to respond to them in a very productive or friendly way.
yeah.
I might even create some weirdness in the relationship. And it's like, we don't have time to get ourselves centered. Well, then where are you going to find the time to clean up all the breakage and the wreckage that you're about to cause by not getting yourself centered?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Because, yes, you're right. I need to, so I like being in this journey with you on self awareness and becoming, and just looking at becoming more emotionally intelligent. Not that there is a place that I arrive, but at least being aware of my emotional thoughts and how they help me become, um, help me be present, help me be present. Um, I think many people here, I think it's totally fine just to learn emotional intelligence so that you can become more productive. Yes, that's one of the key benefits. But if you don't have a lot of tasks that you are need to take care of, but it's a very useful conversation. But of course, this conversation is for people at work, and so all the more it's crucial. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because yesterday I could not afford to take an hour to listen to my son. At first, I was watching the clock when he walked into my studio, and I'll just be really truthful and just share this personal journey, and hope that whoever that hears this might recognize and realize how wonderful the tools that you're bringing into the marketplace are. Because I was looking at the clock, I was like, I'm going to give him 10 minutes. I was in the middle of something, I couldn't think, and I was like, after 10 minutes, I was like, man, he wants to do, okay, I'll give him another 30 minutes. And then later on, I had to really, as I learned to pause and breathe, and my 4-7-8 thing, and breathe and just really be present, going through the emotion mode in my head, I found myself relaxing, listening. Because there was some point he said, Mom, eyes on me. I mean, because we have this kind of conversations. My mom, no side. I need full attention here, Mom. And I was like, I couldn't even click something off, because I thought he could, I thought he didn't notice, but he's like, no, Mom. And then I remember, I was like, okay, be present. I can do this. I can do this. I can give him the full hour, which is what I did. And he was complete. I got to hear him. And I also got to hear a lot of what he said that brought me value to what I was doing. I didn't expect it at all. But what he shared gave me a lot of new insights to what I was creating. And it became a win-win conversation. So that was something that I didn't realize, is that when you are on this path of becoming more self-aware, and having that as your part of your forefront, your toolkit, it spills over to every part of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, to me, it's valuable. That, to me, is worth it.
I think that we do this for ourselves. We clearly are one of the biggest winners. And I'm saying that to our viewers because practicing mastery, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, if it seems like a luxury to you, or like, wow, that would be really nice if I could, do that. I think you should stop and really pay attention to that impulse, and also notice how automatically you discount it or disregard, like, yeah, but I can't do that, or, I don't have time for that. Think about what I said about, if you don't have time for this, then how are you going to find time to clean up all the messes that are going to be caused by the lack of self-awareness and by the miscommunication? I mean, I actually had that just this morning. There was clearly a miscommunication that I was right in the middle of, and I was frustrated by it because I was like, man, I just can't get my point across. And I want to say, what I think. And it's like, I realized in that moment, it's like, you know what? It's not going to matter how clearly you get your point across. Are you listening? Are you letting the other person feel heard? And, it's all about empathy. And I, in the moment had to really, okay, I've got, it takes kind of I'd say a humility, humbleness, to put your own ego on the back burner, put your own ego aside and say, this is not about you. This is not about being right. This is about, like, you want it to be a certain way. You want the communication to be smooth. You want yourself to come across, like, and the other person gets you all the time. And that's just not the way it is. And so take a moment, make sure that you're not making a bigger mess, clean up whatever can be cleaned up in the moment, and establish, like, push the reset button establish a better place to be working on what needs to happen right now, what needs to get done.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we go, we think in task mode, like what needs to get done is the task at hand. You know what? Sometimes what needs to get done is the relationship. You need to actually build the relationship, because trust is more important than the current task and getting it done right now.
So, in the 12 episodes that you have done, how has your, would you say you're a more empathetic person now? Or what has gone up for you?
When you ask that question, it immediately makes me think about episode 6 that I was mentioning, of how much self-awareness do you have, and measurement. And when you ask me, I'm thinking like, okay, empathy. How much more empathy do I have, and how do we measure that? And so that's just the way my mind is working right now. I'm thinking about, yeah, really, how much more do I have, and how could I, quantify or point to that? I will say this. I noticed in personal relationships, so outside of work, I notice that I am taking a little more time to listen, to tune in, to not, justify or explain or rationalize. And I'm trying to practice more empathy about where I come from. Now, I'm very frustrated at the same time whenever the other person isn't really trying to practice empathy. And I am sometimes still having that argument within myself about, so why should I have to practice empathy when the other person clearly needs more empathy? And then I have to remind myself about, that's not what this is about. As a leader, I have to be willing to take people places that they haven't gone, and
Yeah,
they're not even wanting to go right now. But I have to go there first. I have to show the empathy. I
yeah,
can't expect this to be a 50-50.
yeah. As a parent, you definitely have to learn how to practice empathy. So, but I recognize that, here's something that everybody can do as part of your community service. Get yourself accredited to do all the exams and get yourself certified as a teacher. You don't have to be a long time, lifelong public educator, but just go into the system and do your community service by being a public school educator. That's where I learned to practice empathy, because I'm the adult in the room. I took on the contract to be mindful of these charges, middle school, high school, elementary school, and I have to be like, practice empathy versus like, asking to grow up. They can't grow up. They are in the process of being trained in knowledge, in learning empathy, in learning self-control, in learning self-regulation. So I have to model to them, just like you said in one of your episodes, leaders set the tone. Leaders, set decide the emotional culture of the place. In the classroom, you decide the kind of place that you wish to create. And one of the biggest compliment I received was when in a math class I used to teach, they would say, "Ms. O, it feels like church." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "It's so peaceful." And
But
I'm
that's the
like,
environment that you had cultivated
it's
in
the
your own
practice, the
classroom.
place, the environment, because not everybody love math. So
So let me just underscore what you've just shared, Angela. I mean, when you encourage people to do their community service, go through the requirements to get themselves certified or whatever it takes in your local, community or your, country to teach, it's like, man, we need teachers. We really do. And it's not so much, the popular idea is that a teacher is like spending all their time teaching a subject and you got to know a lot. When the truth of it, the fact of it, and I know this from personal experience as well, just like you do. as an adult, a lot of times you already know plenty. You already know, enough to teach. It's not about, a teacher in a classroom, their presence is not just pass on tons and tons of knowledge and you got to study up, in a book, or you don't feel up for it. What's really needed more than anything is the presence of an adult, a caring human being who is there walking with students, helping them practice perseverance, learning character. Those lessons, I think, are even more important than learning algebra, or, how to diagram a sentence, or take apart literature, or learn, the lessons of history. And all those things are important. I'm not downgrading or talking down about them. I love, learning myself. Those are great. But the real lessons that students take away, that they carry with them for life, are usually shared in those moments, not so much when we're teaching content, but when we are answering a question, their question, that is just like under their skin, is just bothering them. They're wiggling in their chair because they just, and it comes at you almost like completely out of left field. They're asking you about some situation at home or some personal situation in life that they're wrestling with. And it's like, what? That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here or what I'm teaching. But you know what? It matters to that child, to that student. And, it often matters to more than just them. It matters to their peers too. And, if one person has that question, several more probably do. So I really appreciate what you're saying and urging is, to do community service by teaching. And I would say it will also stretch and form and shape you in a way that you cannot anticipate right now.
And before I did that, I became full time and got myself certified. I became a sub for many years. Where I came from in Singapore, teachers are respected. So even if you are a relief teacher, that's what we call there, or substitute teacher, you are treated with certain amount of reverence and respect. In America, however, you're just a warm body. You're not like a warm. I didn't understand that at first, so I didn't understand why there was that lack of I'll just call it like it is, lack of respect. And it was very eye-opening. And so you could actually, and very humbling, but you have to then you have to start asking yourself, why am I here? What am I here? And I'm about contribution, and I'm about making my local community better, because I can't change the world. I can do
Right.
one small thing at a time in the place where I'm placed.
Sure.
And it helped me up my self-awareness. And I remember you used to, tease me and just sort of like be frustrated with me and say, you put in so much and you're just a sub going in. And I would take on these work sometimes on Fridays, because it's where teachers go on leave. And I remember, like, no, this is my training ground.
Yeah.
My training ground, because I get to be in a place where, if you're a celebrity or famous person or powerful person, I get to go into a place where nobody care a lick about you or want to respect you. And that's where you learn a lot about yourself, because you learn to regulate, you learn to see, like, how do you want to still come across? How do you, is this a conversation of equals? Are you going to leave this place better than you found it? Are you going to leave an impression where, not that I was trying to impress anyone, but it's like, how can we shift the conversation here?
Yeah.
How can we have maybe turn this relationship from, I don't know anything about you, don't care anything about you, to, wow, I'm glad we have a conversation. These are skills that every leader should have. And I think that's why you at one point says leaders should walk the factory or walk the office or something. Why was that kind of message being, advocated, by consultants like you?
Well, I mean, decades ago, there was this, the idea about management by walking around. It's like you're really going to make more of a contribution by getting up out of your seat, your office, and going to the place where the work is being done and showing up and understanding what workers are facing, what people on the front lines are doing, taking care of customers, or where product is being fabricated, or where software code is being written or debugged or whatever. But it's like, and honestly, the first couple times that a manager or a leader does this and shows up, people are kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? But if you just keep showing up and it becomes regular, people accept it, and you start realizing, oh, there's opportunities to learn for yourself. You learn empathy, but also people then start asking you questions, and they have time to interact and to actually tap into your knowledge, your expertise, your coaching as a leader, because you're available, you're accessible to them. And so management by walking around is one of those things that's like, it's been said before, and some people think that's so old-fashioned, but in fact, it's actually cutting edge, because it never goes out of fashion. It's always a good thing for leaders to not lose touch with their people and with the work itself where it's being done. Go interview some customers. Don't lose touch with your market. Find out what real people who buy your product are saying about how easy or how difficult it is to buy from you, to get service from you, about what questions they have that keep coming up that you don't even have an FAQ on the website for, and that your frontline customer service people keep answering over and over, almost where they're on autopilot, and you really haven't put up a process to address that issue or redesigned your product. There's all sorts of ways that this applies.
So you've done this.
I haven't gotten off topic, by the way, on emotional intelligence. All of this is emotional intelligence, because it actually takes EQ to get up out of your chair, your office, and go be among your people and demonstrate empathy and be humble and do all the things that we've been talking about.
So you've done this a year ahead for many years. Talk to me about how long you've done this year ahead program. So we are in December right now recording this.
Okay.
This year we are rolling out ebook on the year ahead, writing the next chapter of your life, which is going to be available on our website as well on Amazon. So you are also inviting this year is a bit different. Going forward, I think this is our what do you call it? Our maiden year, where you want to invite other people to be part of this, because you want to have data of your clients and of people that you serve and walking this chapter away. So let's talk about how when you started this, why you did this, and now why you are putting a product, a plus a community behind this as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying. I'm trying to recall. I think it was back around 2008, but when I first started trying to capture, maybe it was even before then, 2006. I guess it's not crucial to have the timeline. The point is that I've been doing this for years and years, and a process by which I can first of all review the past year. So here we are at the end of 2022. How can I efficiently and effectively review everything that's happened this past year, at least the highlights, and learn my lessons? One is to celebrate the good things that have happened. Two is to acknowledge the failures or the things that have been not so great that have happened, and then to be complete with them and not carry all that baggage into the new year. And then, hopefully out of that process, you learn some lessons, and, you can crystallize that knowledge into some, tangible expression That's the whole point of what I call the first movement. And, so there's 3 movements in, this whole process, the year ahead. One is to look back and review, is to, be complete with the past and to learn your lessons and to track, like, okay, so what is it that I actually accomplished? And what did I leave undone? Did I not accomplish? And when you do this process over several years, you can start seeing some themes emerge. Like, wow, that project that I keep wanting to get to and keeps getting, it's like a can that you kick down the road, it keeps getting delayed. What's behind that? What is that really something I'm committed to? When am I going to really go for it and make that happen? And, that's kind of interesting because like the first book that I published this year back in the summer, A Guide to Mindfulness Meditation, was one of these projects that I started years ago. And then it didn't even show up on my year ahead that I did, over the years. And then it came back recently and I was like, okay, time to get that thing out. All right. So the year ahead, first movement, complete the past, review the past year. Second is look at the present. What am I learning about myself? This is the moment for self-awareness, to reflect on, who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the patterns that I notice about myself that are going on? And through a series of questions and, really focused reflection, you try to get to the essence of like, who am I and what's going on right now? What is my purpose? What are my values? What's most important to me? You really need that before you go into the third movement, which is looking ahead to the next year, the year ahead, and setting some direction. And you start by, being in possibility and thinking about, what is it that I, really dream a little bit, brainstorm, get a lot of things out, get your thinking out on the page. And then you go through a process of kind of refining it, prioritizing, projectizing it, like, okay, there's a limited amount of time and limited things I can do. What are going to be priorities in the year ahead? And so you take from your brainstorming list and, boil it down to, what does I really want to focus on? And at the end of this process where you ask these 12 questions of yourself and you journal it out, you have a plan for the next year and you're ready to go. That's really what the year ahead is about. I've been doing it for the last, at least 15 years, and not always doing it well, perfectly, certainly not. I've stumbled, but it has given me a baseline, and I've thought about it for a while. Like, I need to share this with the world and be a guide for other people. I do this with clients, with customers, but I want to make it more widely available to people. And so that's what the year ahead is about.
So I put your your handles there, contact information that they can follow and learn more about this. I noticed the time, and I want to keep it another hour or close to. Is there anything you want to talk about, let our listeners and viewers know more about the future episodes?
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. There's, after 12 episodes, I feel like I'm just getting started. It's not like I'm, spent or, I've kind of exhausted, my topics. And that's kind of a surprise to me a little bit. But you and we started last year in the fall trying to record a podcast. We did, I don't know, maybe I think 10 recordings, but we never published that and went public with it. And then this year, 2022, in the spring, we did Twitter Spaces, which is like live audio. And we did, I think, about 16 episodes of that called Emotional Tools. And some of those ideas we have revisited on the Self-Aware Leader. But there's more to come. And I find that the more we share, the more my thinking gets refined and sharpened, but it also expands. And so here's something, I've talked about the 5 dimensions of EQ. You may notice that we have focused mostly on the internal, or what I call individual, the personal side of this a lot more than anything else. So we've talked about self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, and then the tools like practicing mindfulness and using the emotions wheel and journaling and some of these things. We've not really talked about the social side. And so in the new year, in upcoming episodes, I really want to explore more about social awareness or empathy and social control or social regulation and some of the skills of leadership and influence and networking and how to help other people with emotional regulation. And those are some of the topics. There's also some other sort of topics that I have in mind that I'd like to explore, like a deep dive on mindset. When we talked about mindfulness, that came up, and you've kind of nudged me along on that and said I need to put that into another book that we can roll out and make it useful to people. And so I'm willing to do that, and I think we should feature that in a future episode, a deep dive on mindset. And then also the neuroscience. I've got some friends in Arizona who have a brain lab, and I'd like to feature some of them as a guest on this live stream, talking about some of the neuroscience behind mindset, behind emotional intelligence and leadership, and what self-aware leaders can gain from that. So a lot of topics actually on my agenda in the new year for the next season. And so I'm really excited about this. And for those watching, you have some great ideas, and I'd love to hear your input. So put those in the comments or drop us a line, send me an email, ron@leadskill.com. Let me know what you're thinking and what you'd like to see or hear more about.
Okay, great. I definitely, my years are picked behind when you talk about social awareness. I remember when we were doing Twitter Spaces and you were inviting me to be part of it, and I don't, except for a devotional account that I have, I really don't tweet much, but I enjoy being part of it, learning the new technology and getting acquainted with a couple of young people in the NFT space. I have to say that I realize how socially inept I am in talking with people in the NFT space. But it was really fun. They were really gracious, and I enjoyed it. So, it really helped me recognize there is still so much I could learn. Just when you think you uh, know how to communicate effectively, you realize, another group of people shows up in your world, and you realize you got to start all over again and
Yeah.
start new.
It's
And
humbling.
it's very humbling. I see that, and I think that many people in LinkedIn, as we are learning to grow a global network of professional relationships, we are all also learning how to reconnect with people in a professional way. And so that is a topic that I'm certainly interested in finding about. As far as neuroscience behind mindsets, I think that's really cool as well.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thank
I
you, Ron.
think we've covered everything that we wanted to on this synopsis for the first 12 shows or episodes, and then reviewing our 2022, the ground we've covered, and a little peek at what lies ahead. And I'm really excited about that. I mean, even taking some of the first 12 shows and repurposing them into a podcast and sharing those with a wider audience. I think that's something that we want to do in the new year. And I'd like to have more people part of this live stream, part of the live show, and engaging, interacting like what we saw in Twitter Spaces, there. So, these are some of the things that we want to take care of in 2023. And so the question that I'd have for you tuning in is, what's on the agenda for your 2023? Do you have a plan in place? And how are you going to, make that happen and come about? Lead Skill actually provides coaching for leaders who, would like a little extra support and either want individual one-on-one coaching, group coaching, or want to bring some of the things we're talking about, those conversations, into their company, their workspace, and make it a part of what's happening there. So we can help with each one of those needs. And so get in touch with us. We'd be happy to talk with you more. Angela, it's been actually quite a journey so far with you. I really appreciate your presence. You give me a lot on this live stream, and I'm just really grateful for the amount of attention and professionalism, and just, you know, how you think about these podcasts and, you know, these live streams, and help them be so much better than they would be if it were just me alone trying to broadcast into the void. And so thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for leading these conversations. I benefit from a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to more in what's lying ahead. And by the way, check out the sister channel that we have, Simple Daily Joy, more for lifestyle and more about mindset, about, you know, tuning into the things that really matter. You know, Angela writes a newsletter on LinkedIn called, you know, Focus on What Matters. And, you know, maybe that's something that speaks to you. Maybe that's the kind of leader that you just want to have more joy in the everyday. And you want a simple life. You want to simplify things, to kind of bring it. Now, we were talking to a friend of ours, longtime friend, but he's in Mexico, and he did radical simplification. He decluttered his life, minimized, you know, and just minimalist sort of thing, and has been living in Mexico the last several years. And, you know, if something like that kind of appeals to you, or like maybe not moving overseas, but like just simplifying your current life, or maybe you're in a season where it's like, you know, you're trying to move from being a frenzied, harried young parent, and like just bring more mindfulness to parenting and to your everyday. Get in touch. Follow Angela on LinkedIn, and she's got some things that she can share with you as well. Thanks for joining us today. Really grateful for your presence here, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the new year and in future episodes of The Self-Aware Leader. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.